Have you ever cradled your feverish child through the night alone while the man you loved was wrapped around a girl half your age, moaning promises he once whispered to you? Have you ever walked past your own reflection and no longer recognized the woman staring back? This isn't just a story about cheating. It's about silence. It's about loyalty being mistaken for weakness. It's about how betrayal isn't always loud. It often creeps in quietly, with a smile, with a lie, with a hoodie that isn't yours. My name is Lydia, and this is the story of how I found out my husband Milton, a teacher, a father, was sleeping with his student, while I was caring for our sick son, in the very house they desecrated. Stay with me, because this isn't about revenge. It's about truth. It's about healing. It's about waking up. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to Lies Unveiled, where silence breaks and stories speak. He came home from school, kissed our son goodnight, and said he was just tutoring. But her lipstick said otherwise. They say silence speaks louder than words. But in my house, silence had become a language of everything we stopped saying. It started as distance, quiet dinners, short replies, nights where we lay side by side, but a universe apart. I used to think that maybe all marriages went through phases like this, that maybe love wasn't always loud. But then came the lies I told myself to sleep. My husband Milton was a high school English teacher. Kind, articulate, charming. Parents loved him. Students adored him. And I was just tired. A mother, a wife, a woman with fading dreams, and a child who kept me awake more nights than I could count. I didn't notice the shift at first. He started coming home later. He said it was grading, tutoring, meetings. And maybe it was, in the beginning. But you can feel it when someone starts choosing someone else in the quiet. There was a name that came up often, Lydia. Bright, eager, a senior in his literature class. She was applying to college and asked him for help on her essays. He said she reminded him of himself at that age. I told myself to stop being paranoid, to stop overthinking, to trust the man I married. But trust, once questioned, starts to rot beneath the surface. And I would learn all too soon that what we ignore doesn't disappear. It grows. People don't wake up one day and decide to fall out of love. It happens slowly, subtly, like a leak behind the walls, invisible, but corroding everything. After the show ended, they tried to live normally. Grocery runs, brunch dates, therapy sessions. Lydia documented none of it. She wasn't one for performative happiness. Milton, on the other hand, returned to social media like a man craving validation. New followers, new DMs, and slowly new habits. Lydia noticed the shift first in the way he dressed for quick errands. Shirts too tight, cologne too loud, phone always face down. But she gave him the benefit of the doubt, because that's what marriage asks of us. Until one day, their toddler fell ill, a fever that wouldn't break. Lydia stayed up all night, cooling him down, calling clinics, cradling him like only a mother could. Milton? He said he had a meeting. She begged him to cancel. He left anyway. She didn't know until later that the meeting was a rooftop lounge downtown with someone he claimed was just a fan. That night, as their son finally drifted to sleep in her arms, Lydia sat in the quiet. Her exhaustion wasn't just physical. It was emotional. The kind of tired you get when your heart carries weight your mind hasn't accepted yet. She replayed their conversations. His defensiveness. The way he'd shut down any time she asked where he'd been. His favorite excuse. You're always assuming the worst. But assumptions are just instincts wrapped in fear. And Lydia's instincts were screaming. A week later, while folding laundry, she found a receipt in his jeans. A boutique hotel. 2 guests. 1 room. She didn't scream. She didn't throw things. She simply sat there, holding the evidence, staring at it like it might change its story if she blinked long enough. The cracks were no longer hidden. They were breaking through the paint. And she finally let herself stop painting over them. I should have felt it sooner, the way a house can hold secrets, the way a glance lingers too long on a name spoken too often. But when you're in the thick of motherhood, of bills, of exhaustion and diapers and unfinished groceries, your heart doesn't always get to notice what your eyes see. I remember the first whisper of doubt came from something stupid, a coffee receipt. Milton rarely bought coffee from anywhere other than the teacher's lounge. But this one had a cafe logo I didn't recognize. It was tucked in his back pocket one night when I did laundry. I almost threw it away until I saw the time. 6:42 p.m. That was the night he told me he stayed at school for a staff meeting. I remember because I had asked him to bring home some cough medicine for our son, and he said he was too busy to stop. I didn't say anything. I folded the jeans, tucked the receipt away, and told myself it was nothing. But it wasn't just that. One night, I found a bottle of women's perfume in the back seat of our car. The scent wasn't mine. It was lighter, fruitier. The kind a girl might wear to prom. I asked him about it. He laughed it off. Said one of his students probably left it behind after a tutoring session. Another time, I saw a sticky note wedged in his wallet. On it was written, "Don't forget to print Lydia's essay." The handwriting was loopy, cursive, unfamiliar. Not his. Not mine. Still, I stayed quiet. Because sometimes silence feels safer than confrontation. And because the version of the truth I built in my mind was easier to live with than the one clawing at the edges. But truth doesn't sit quietly. It seeps. And it was on a Thursday afternoon, as I packed lunch for my son and glanced at Milton's calendar, that I noticed a detail I hadn't seen before. A scribble in the corner of the page, L4 p.m. Just an initial. A time. But my stomach twisted. He came home that day smelling like cologne I didn't buy him. That night, when he kissed me, I pulled away. He asked me what was wrong. I said I was tired. But the truth is, I was afraid. Afraid that the man I trusted, the man who once stayed up all night when our son had a fever, the man who wrote me poems in our early years, had become a stranger. And Lydia, that name kept echoing. Was I imagining it? Was it postpartum paranoia? Hormones? Or worse, was I finally seeing clearly? I started to watch more closely. He guarded his phone now. Used to leave it charging in the kitchen. Now it never left his pocket. He changed his lock screen. He turned off message previews. He smiled more at dinner. Asked me how my day was. Played with our son longer in the evenings. But all of it felt like noise. Like a performance. Something to distract from what he didn't want me to see. And what scared me most wasn't that he might be lying. It was that I had become too numb to care. If you've ever questioned your instincts, only to later realize they were right all along, this story is yours. Like, comment, and subscribe to Lies Unveiled for more true confessions like this. It happened on a Sunday. The kind of ordinary day that shouldn't leave scars, but it did. Our son had been sick all weekend. Nothing dramatic, just a fever, some coughing. He was clingy, tired, wouldn't eat much. I stayed by his side most of the day, wiping his forehead, holding him when he cried, rocking him to sleep on my chest like I used to when he was an infant. Milton said he had to go to school to grade. Said he had papers that needed finishing before Monday. I told him I needed him whole, that our son needed both of us. He kissed my forehead and said, "I won't be long." But he was. Hours passed. I tried not to text him too much. Didn't want to seem needy. But as the sky turned orange and our son's fever spiked, I finally messaged, "Any updates?" He replied, "Still at school. Almost done." That night, our son whimpered through sleep, sweat dampening his curls. I stayed up with him, pacing, cradling, whispering lullabies. Milton came back near midnight. Said he lost track of time. I didn't fight him. I didn't have the energy. But the next morning, I found the clue that would split the world in two. I was cleaning the car, trying to air it out since our son had thrown up the night before. As I vacuumed under the passenger seat, I found a strand of long golden hair. Lydia's hair was golden. I'd seen her once, briefly, when I came to pick Milton up after a parent-teacher night. She had waited by his classroom door with a folder in her hands, hair down, eyes bright. It could have been anyone's, I told myself. But my heart clenched. I bagged the hair in a sandwich bag, and I began searching. I didn't want to be the wife who snooped, but I had become the wife who was tired of lies. His email was locked. His phone had two-factor authentication. But his tablet? His tablet still auto-logged into a few things, including his school Dropbox. Inside, there were folders, lesson plans, essay prompts. Nothing strange until I saw one marked Lydia Personal. Inside were files, screenshots of text messages, photos of her essay drafts, notes with timestamps that didn't align with class hours. And then, at the very bottom, a JPEG. I clicked. It was a photo. Not explicit, but suggestive. Lydia, on a couch I recognized our couch. Legs tucked under her, holding a coffee mug. Milton's hoodie on her shoulders. She looked comfortable, familiar, at home. My stomach turned. My throat closed. I had no more room for doubt. He brought her here, to the home where our child slept, where our wedding pictures hung. He brought her here while I was caring for our sick son. It wasn't just betrayal. It was desecration. He came home like nothing had changed, set his keys down, kicked off his shoes, greeted me with a casual, "Hey, how was your day?" I didn't answer. I was sitting at the kitchen table, my laptop open, the receipt glaring up at me like a scar that wouldn't fade. Women's Health Center. 2 weeks ago. James M. He glanced at the screen, and I saw it the flicker. The brief flinch in his eyes before he masked it. "You forgot something at the clinic," I said flatly. His shoulders stiffened. He opened his mouth, then closed it. I waited. "I didn't mean for you to find out like this," he said finally. "But you meant for it to happen." "No, it wasn't supposed to go this far." She kissed me one night after tutoring. I didn't stop it. My voice trembled, but not from sadness. From fury held too long. "You slept with your student. In our house. While our child was sick. Do you understand what kind of man that makes you?" He stepped forward, hands up like I was the irrational one. "It just happened. We didn't plan it. She's 18. Oh, don't you dare hide behind legality. You had power, authority, and you used it." He looked away. "She said she was in love with me, that she needed me." I laughed. A hollow, cracked sound. "And what about me? What about your son? We needed you." But I guess that didn't feel as exciting, did it? He tried again. I was confused. I wasn't thinking clearly. You were clear enough to take her to get an abortion. Clear enough to hide it. Lie to me every night. He rubbed his face. "I didn't want to hurt you, but you did. Every single day you looked me in the eye and pretended nothing was wrong. You killed something between us slowly, silently. The tears came, uninvited but unstoppable. You don't even look sorry. You look caught. Silence. His eyes avoided mine. So tell me, Milton, was any of it real? The marriage? The vows? The nights you said you loved me? His lips parted. I don't know. And that was the moment. That exact moment. Not when I found the receipt. Not when I confirmed the affair. But when the man I married looked me in the eye and said he didn't know. That's when my heart broke, not from betrayal, but from the certainty that it had never been whole to begin with. The hours after Milton left were the quietest of my life. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't scroll through my phone. I just sat there, breathing in the reality that had taken root overnight. A kind of silence that hums so loud, it drowns everything else. My first instinct was to clean. I scrubbed the counters, washed every dish, stripped the sheets from the bed, anything that might have held a trace of them. I washed that hoodie twice, but the scent of betrayal doesn't come out in one cycle. Around noon, I picked up my son from daycare. He ran into my arms, his smile so wide, so oblivious to the storm he'd just been spared. I held him longer than usual, tighter, whispered I loved him more times than necessary, because children always deserve more love than explanation. That night, when he fell asleep, I sat at the edge of his bed and cried, not just for the marriage I'd lost, but for every moment I believed it was still intact, for every plan I made with a man who was already halfway out the door. Over the next few days, Milton tried to text. He said he was sorry, sighed he never meant to hurt me, that Lydia had been a mistake, a moment of weakness. But weakness doesn't last 7 months. It doesn't visit your home. It doesn't learn your child's favorite toy. That's not weakness. That's a choice. I didn't reply. I didn't scream. I didn't beg for answers. Because what's the point of screaming into a hole that never cared to echo back? Instead, I made a list. A list of the things I would keep, the things I would let go, the memories I would no longer allow to define me. I called a therapist. I called a lawyer. And finally, I called my sister. I told her everything. For the first time in weeks, someone cried with me. It wasn't just about infidelity. It was about trust, about time, about how easily we can lose ourselves in the lives we build around someone else. And once I started talking, I couldn't stop. Sometimes healing begins with a name, saying it out loud, stripping it of its power. So I said it. Milton cheated on me with his student in our house while I was taking care of our son. And the moment I spoke that truth, the shame began to lift. Not all of it, not yet, but enough. Enough to breathe again. After the storm came stillness. Not peace, not yet, but the kind of stillness that allows you to hear your own thoughts again, unfiltered, unmuted, uninterrupted. I started writing at night. Small things, words I couldn't say out loud, but needed to live somewhere. Sometimes a memory, sometimes a question. One entry just said, "What did I miss?" Another, "Why did I trust so easily?" But as the pages filled, so did a strange realization. I hadn't been blind. I had just chosen love over doubt, chosen family over suspicion. And for that, I wasn't foolish. I was loyal. And loyalty is only a flaw in the hands of the unworthy. I began reclaiming the small parts of myself that I'd lost along the way. I wore lipstick again, played the music I liked, took long walks without checking my phone, I even bought a new set of sheets. Crisp white. Symbolic, maybe, but somehow necessary. Grief doesn't just grieve the person. It grieves the version of you that loved them. And I had to let her go too. I mourned her. The woman who waited for the front door to open at 6 p.m. The one who second-guessed herself to keep the peace. The one who thought loyalty meant silence. She tried her best. And now she rests. I used to believe that betrayal was the end of something. Now I know it's the beginning. Not the kind of beginning that bursts with hope and bright skies, but the kind where you pick up the shards with trembling hands and whisper, "Okay, let's try again." Not with him, not with anyone else, but with yourself. Milton never apologized in a way that mattered. Not in the way that unravels the damage or rebuilds trust. His sorries were soft landings for his own guilt, not bridges to redemption. And Lydia? She was young, reckless, maybe even manipulated in her own way. But she was never my responsibility. My healing couldn't hinge on punishing her. I let go of needing answers. Let go of closure. Because sometimes, closure isn't a door swinging shut. It's walking away from the wreckage, barefoot, bloodied, but still breathing. I focused on the future. Not the fairy tale I once imagined, but something quieter, sturdier. A life built on truth, not illusion. A home with laughter that doesn't echo around lies. I forgave myself for loving too much, for waiting too long, for mistaking endurance for strength. And I made peace with the truth. You can't control who betrays you, but you can choose what comes next. And I chose this, to speak, to share, to heal out loud, because somewhere another woman is staring at a photo she didn't ask to find. Another mother is watching her child sleep while her world unravels. Another heart is breaking, thinking it's the only one. And to her I say, you are not alone. You are not weak. You are not unworthy. You are just waking up. Welcome back. If this story stirred something in you, leave a comment, hit like, and share it with someone who needs it. And if you're ready to reclaim your voice, subscribe to Lies Unveiled, where truth has a home.